Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Welcome to another weekly Wednesday live stream with the MSI Insiders. I'm Peter.
And I'm Robin.
Of course, you know Robin. He is Groot.
Groot.
Yes. This is actually his name. It's a Dutch name, but you know.
Yeah.
So he actually is Groot.
True story.
It's true story. Yeah. So yeah, welcome to today's stream. Today, like the title says, we're going to be talking about ray tracing, but also about RTX Super.
Ooh,
the super duper
cards.
new cards. Yeah. So Nvidia yesterday announced some new graphics cards, a 2060 and a 2070, and even a 2080 Super. But we're gonna go into a bit more detail later on. First, I want to go into some ray tracing stuff. But before we do that, Robin might have something for you.
Yeah, so today we have, let me check.
What do you have for them?
Today we have a giveaway. You can win a Steam code.
Bet you guys didn't see that one coming,
Steam
did you?
wallet. No. So go to msi.com/2/insider and click on the link to participate for the giveaway.
Yes.
And follow the instructions, of course.
Yeah. So basically, like our social media channels, and you have a chance to win a $20 Steam code, which you can then use to buy the game we're going to show you later on as well. Because I think it's on sale, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So welcome, everybody. I see a lot of names that of regular viewers. So what's up? I'm Box.
I am Box.
Hello, Matt. CSGO. KU Fallen. Also some new names. Welcome to the stream if you're new, guys. Really cool that you're watching. We hope you enjoy it. Steam code, what a surprise.
What a surprise.
I know. But then again, it doesn't really limit you to one type of thing or one type of game. So it does provide you with some choice. But you have to spend it with Lord Gaben, though. That's the only thing that, we couldn't really get out of that. Because, he's all powerful. You guys know this, right? So we all live under the sky that Lord Gaben provides.
True.
All right, and he is the light. And speaking of light, oh my God, I'm getting worse at these segues. I'm like Linus.
Yeah, you're doing the Linus here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of light, our sponsor, ray tracing. Because, we've covered this in the past as well. And then I think, especially like half a year ago, when the RTX cards were released, I think everybody was covering it. But I did want to do a bit of a recap as well. And we, of course, have a nice demo with Quake II, which they completely redid, which I think was really cool. It was a game that I played in my childhood. I got some serious nostalgia vibes when I played it. Also really cool is that you can play it for free, at least the demo version. And I'm going to be showing you later on all the options that it provides. It's like a developer version. They've made some really cool changes in there, which allows you to play around with all the effects. And I think this is probably the most ray-traced game I have seen so far. I mean, I know there are games out there that use ray tracing, like Battlefield 5. And, what was the other game that we played? Like the Russian underground thing,
Metro?
Moscow. Yes, Metro. Yeah, so, and those games... To be fair, they're gorgeous. They're really cool.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree, they all use ray tracing. Shadow of the Tomb Raider uses mostly ray traced shadows. So well chosen, that name, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I see what you did there.
Some heavy shadows.
Yeah, exactly. But, so what we see is that different elements of ray tracing are being used in certain games. But there aren't, any games out there yet that use pretty much all of them that are like fully ray traced, which is understandable because that would impact performance quite a bit. But I think Quake II RTX, which is the game that we're going to show you later on as well, uses the most amount of ray tracing technology that I've seen put together in one game. And it absolutely wrecks GPUs. I mean, I don't care if you have an RTX 2080 Ti. We have a system here today where I'm going to be playing it on later on, which has an RTX 2080 Ti inside it. And you're going to see just how heavy and expensive, computationally expensive it is to use all of that ray tracing in a relatively simple game with, doesn't have that many complex shapes and geometry like Quake II. So yeah, it's amazing to see it.
It's a real skull breaker.
It,
FPGA had a skull.
yeah, exactly. I mean, let's just say those fans on the graphics cards are gonna have to do their fair share today.
Very hard, yes.
Yes, yeah. So I see Robin also posted the direct link to the giveaway for the guys who don't see it on the website, so you can go there directly. Does anyone actually use ray tracing? I think that's a good question. Why do all these tech guys talk trash about each other? Peden, I think it's more like banter. You know, it's all meant in good spirits. We all enjoy the work that our well, I don't even want to say our tech colleagues, but you know, we watch the videos and we read the reviews of all the guys pretty much, and we really appreciate all the efforts they do. And it's more like, you know, it's a meme a bit. Sometimes they do things and it's just so funny. It just sticks. So anyway, yeah, ray tracing. So yeah, show them the slide.
Okay, here you go. Ta-da!
Yeah, so what does this have to do with ray tracing, right?
I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah. Did you play this game when you were young?
Actually, I did a lot, yeah.
Yeah?
Like, it was so awesome, this game.
How did people see you playing it when you were at home? Because I imagine you were quite young then still.
Yes, I was, well, younger than you, yeah.
Yeah. You probably still are then, right?
I still are. No.
That's the way it works.
I was really young, and I wasn't even allowed to play this game, but
you still sneaked it in, right?
My parents saw me playing this game, and they saw all the shiny, well, colorful colors, and thought, well, that must be a nice game.
Yeah.
For young people to play.
Yeah, I got a similar response where my parents were pretty much saying, we have to stop this, because they saw, like, you know, swastikas moving around on the screen and they were like, holy crap, what's going on here? You know, if you're, you can imagine maybe, you know, just watching your I don't know, like 10-year-old kid or something, and you know, he probably doesn't even know that much yet about history. He doesn't maybe understand it. And you're just seeing him like shoot people and especially Nazis, and you know, the Nazi flags are going over the screen, and you're like, what? What is this? So that was my experience. But it was, you know, it was really, I think, widely regarded. It might not be the first actual 3D game that came out. I don't think so. But it was, I think, widely regarded as the godfather, you know, the daddy of all 3D shooters, first-person shooters. So yeah, but this was 1991. You know, this is 91. A long time ago. Wow. Yeah, when this released. Of course, a lot of us played it, even though it was already old for a couple of years. But you know, this was like one of the first steps into the realm of 3D, right?
Right.
So then it took about 5 years to reach this level. You know, and this is Quake 1.
Wow.
Yeah, 96. And already you can see there's a lot of difference. There's a lot more depth, and there's actually 3D modeling, and you know, it's still rough. But
the previous game used sprites, right? So basically,
in this game, when you would actually move around, you know, there's no perspective. So basically, you know, the image of the fallen soldier or the soldier aiming at you would actually more like rotate with your perspective. So you wouldn't actually see, for example, the other side of the guy laying on the ground dead. You would always see his feet.
So those characters are basically flat planes.
It's basically just like a PNG or a GIF or whatever, indeed. And it's basically just a flat plane, and it's just, you know, being rotated. But it's more about the walls and the perspective there. That's the 3D part in this game, indeed. But this game already made a big step.
Huge
and before that,
before
that you also had Doom and other games. But yeah, we took just a few examples. This game creeped me the hell out back then, and I loved it for it. And you know, I had nightmares about it, and I had good dreams. Running around with a nail gun. You know, just lovely.
We all have been there.
Yeah. I mean, who comes up with this stuff? That person has to be like seriously disturbed, right?
I don't know.
It's just, but great game. Then 2 years on, I think another big milestone, right?
Yes. And this is
Half-Life 1. Just you know, the first Half-Life, and still one of the best games.
The legendary crowbar.
Yeah, the Freeman running around with the crowbar at Black Mesa.
Yeah.
Oh man,
those were the times.
This game gave me chills, man. It was so well written, and you know, if you go back to it now, it's still okay, but it's kind of crappy around the edges.
A bit outdated.
We're spoiled, is what I'm saying. Yeah, and then, you know, in the early 2000s, you had other games. This, I think, was for me also a big gem, Battlefield 1942. Really enjoyed the crap out of that because there was so much to do, and they were able to combine so many different types of vehicles as well in a game where I don't really remember if anything specifically was very overpowered. You know, they still use kind of the same formula in Battlefield, although now it's like a behemoth, like a big vehicle, so you don't really get the big battleships or an aircraft carrier anymore. But it's amazing how well they managed to balance everything. Because now it just seems that, you know, in a game like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, where they did a lot of balancing after the fact, because, you know, sometimes these big vehicles would influence the whole outcome of the map, and they were just too powerful. And it just seems that the balance is so delicate these days. So I wonder, like, were they just that good at doing it from the outset, back when they made this game, Battlefield 1942, or did they also have to do a lot of tweaking, but I just was too young to kind of understand what they were doing?
Yeah, I think they did.
I don't know.
Tweak a lot. Yeah.
I don't know.
Spent much time on tweaking.
Or maybe it was, you know, very lopsided, and some vehicles were just way overpowered, but maybe I just didn't notice because I was too young. I don't know. All I know is I have such good memories of this game. I used to play it for hours, you know.
So, but basically, what is Battlefield 5 today? This game, was it back in 2002?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, the formula is very similar indeed. And I think that's good, because this game, I think a lot of people still really like it and have good memories about it. So it's not a bad thing that they try to revamp and stay true to the old formula. They really found a really good way of doing it back then. But, you know, the graphics still, they were actually pretty good then as well. It was a big step forward again from the likes of Quake, for example. But still, you know, it was still a bit rough around the edge, especially if you compare it to now, because, you know, this, for example, this was the big jump, right? I think here is where,
guys,
this is the moment where everybody's jaw just dropped to the floor, and everybody's graphics card just spontaneously burst into flames.
yeah.
Right? I think pretty much that's what happened.
Houses burned down.
Maybe you guys in the chat can confirm this. What happened the day that Crysis came out? You know, I think that's pretty much, yeah, a very memorable day.
Not only for your VGA, but also for your wallet.
Oh yeah.
This game,
yes.
Well, it costed a lot.
Yeah, and
not the game itself, but hardware to run.
Yeah, there's a reason it became a meme in the end, you know. But can it run Crysis? Because this game was so ridiculously over the top and so ahead of its time in terms of, you know, the pure number of things that had to be calculated. You know, you see the shadows, you see the shapes. Everything was very detailed in terms of the 3D model. So it was very intensive to calculate all that for a GPU of that time.
This game also had many settings.
Yeah.
Endlessly tweak the graphics settings.
Yeah, also
tune up the graphics.
Yeah, so it was incredibly detailed in that aspect as well. It's like, if you look at like the value of developing a game like this, I don't even want to know how long it took to make this game, but I think it was like 10 times longer than the typical game that came out at the time, because this thing was so far ahead of its time. It's, you know, anyway. And then from 2007 to, well, pretty much I took this example, Battlefield 1, 2016, which I think a lot of people agree, you know, this was a gorgeous game. And it played pretty good as well. Actually, it wasn't that heavy, you know, it wasn't ridiculous like Crysis. It would play pretty okay. You had to compromise on the settings, but you know, it would still look pretty sweet. And if you had the power to push it all the way up to the max settings, same with Battlefield 5 right now, you know, it just looks breathtaking. It's not 100% photorealistic, but it looks just really nice.
It still does today.
Yeah. But I mean, just imagine, right? So that's a time gap of 1991 to 2016. That's what, 25 years?
Yeah, 25. Yeah.
25 years, guys. This is how far we came in 25 years. And it's amazing. Because, you know, the progress we've made and the visual quality that we're able to enjoy now is just stunning compared to what it used to be. So now I want to talk about ray tracing because, when we went from 2D games to 3D games, that was a huge step, of course, and nothing like that had ever been done before. There was dedicated hardware like graphics cards developed in the end to support it. So does that sound familiar to you? That they had dedicated things on the graphics card to support it, to support 3D back then.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there's a bit of a parallel with ray tracing, right? Because now we see on the RTX cards there is hardware support, so dedicated hardware on these cards to support ray tracing.
Yeah, I can remember. Well, back then you also had for the physics, right? You had well, a separate card
physics
for
cards.
Physics card,
or you could just use later on. I think you could use a less powerful card to do dedicated physics.
Yes,
you could do that as well. Yeah, but so ray tracing has a lot of similarities to when we started doing 3D, pretty much. And why I'm saying this is because I just want to let you guys know that we pretty much just have started seeing the very first baby steps of real-time ray tracing in games. Even breathtaking games like Battlefield 5 and Metro.
Well, Joe Brown is saying you're breathtaking. Well, Peter is
God.
not.
All right, okay. Just bring in Keanu. Keanu, come in.
Come in.
I wish it was like that, guys. But yeah, you guys are breathtaking. No, but I mean, it's ray tracing got off to a bit of a rough start, which kind of makes sense. But I think it did kind of let's just say it didn't really underline the progress that they did actually make, which the practical value isn't quite there yet. But I think like the first cards that did 3D and the first games that did 3D. The first games that do ray tracing right now, it's kind of the same thing. But I think we're going to see, a much faster development than we did with 3D. I truly hope so. I hope we don't have to wait 25 years to, get the difference like that there. No, but so if we already see, ray tracing in for example, Battlefield 5 and all the titles I just mentioned before, it's only partially ray traced, right? So most of it is still rasterized, and then there are several effects that are being applied. But it's not, the game from the outset wasn't created with ray tracing in mind. So that tells me that, there's a lot of things that can still be done. And a game that will, for example, Cyberpunk, a game that's going to be coming up, will, I think, show us already maybe some better more advanced implementations of ray tracing and what we can expect in the future. Because it could be that they're going all out on visual prowess, which would then mean that probably it's gonna burn your GPU, or they can maybe also find ways to optimize it while also adding new eye candy. So this is, I think, a very exciting time, and it will be like the second generation.
Yeah, because for Battlefield 5 they had a very short time span from announcement to implementation, right?
Yeah, and I think it was added more like a layer on top, as in when the game was already well into its relative final stages, where they added it in, as opposed to, for example, with Cyberpunk. I think that game is also, by the way, so long in development already, so it might be that it's also more like a layer on top, but they've had a hell of a lot more time to think about how to include it and how to make it work. So, yeah, I think games like that, and I think also Watch Dogs Legion, those games will probably show us some different ways already and some new implementation. So very excited about that. So what is ray tracing? I think everybody, most of you guys will know this because, like I said, last year when the RTX series launched, everybody was like, "What the hell is this ray tracing stuff? Why is Nvidia pushing this on us?" And then we got all this information, and they tried to teach us how it works and why it's important, blah blah blah. But for the people who might have missed it, who have been living under a rock or I don't know, without internet for a couple of years, then it's basically a way of let's start with rasterization, which is the way that games have been done up until now. Which is basically they try to create a realistic image based on trickery. They will use what they call hacks or tricks to try and mimic the effects of light. And in a certain, for example, in a static environment, that can work, because then you only have to take into account that one perspective, and then you can make it as realistic pretty much as you want. It's still difficult because you still have to account for how will light move through objects or around them, how will light influence each other, but it's doable.
Also with reflections, right? It's basic mirroring.
Yeah, it's
basically.
Well, it's all kinds of things, and we'll get into that later. But
Okay.
it's light bounces around. It's partially absorbed. It's deflected. It can shine through things. Light reacts to different objects and colors and stuff differently. So very difficult to make it realistic. Because first, then you have to understand how does light actually work, and that's like a whole study in and of itself. Anyway. It's the more realistic they try to make these games, the more of these hacks they have to apply, and each of these hacks takes a hell of a lot of time of the artist or the developer, the team that makes the game, and still, even when they manage it, it's very hard to make these things react in real life. So when for example, sun goes up, sun goes down, shadows should move with it. The perspective should change, maybe the light even, and the intensity of light, things like that, and reflections don't really react the same way when you do rasterization. So ray tracing has been around for a while, to be honest, but it's a way to basically, what it does is it takes the camera on this image, which represents your eye, basically, the way,
right.
From where you see the world, that point of view. And it will shoot out a fair number of rays, and each ray will basically contain information and gather information along the way, because it will hit objects, and it will check what color is that object, what material is it, should it be shiny, so is it reflective, or is it matte, should it absorb, is this object when it bounces further, is it directly lit by a light source, so should it be in the light, or is there something in between, so should it be in the shadow. All that kind of information per ray is being then examined and then pulled back to the GPU, and that for each pixel basically tells it, hey, it should be this color, it should be either shiny, matte, should reflect, should be in the shadow or not. So a lot of information, and this is just per ray, so very complex. I think movies like Monsters Inc. and Toy Story, they've been using this for a long time. These CGI movies, and I think we're talking about real-time ray tracing, but they did it with, I don't know, you told me earlier it was like,
for Toy Story, yes,
maybe like a year to render the whole movie or something, all the frames.
For almost a year, yes.
So that's ridiculous, right?
And
when you compare it,
we're talking about supercomputers here, right? Yeah, huge servers.
Exactly. And so this is the jump that I mean, guys. I mean, this has been highlighted by Nvidia, of course, as well. But I still want to highlight it because, for me personally, purely from a technological perspective, that is impressive. That they've managed to find a way to at least make part of this. I know it's not fully ray traced, but still part of this technology to make it like real time and to make it doable in 30, 60-ish FPS. And they're still trying to find ways to optimize it, of course, DLSS and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is impressive stuff. So then, here are some of the things that Nvidia presented, as in, some of the technologies behind ray tracing. So you have, for example, ambient occlusion, shadows, of course, very important, depends on where the light source is coming from. Reflections, I think almost every surface reflects some light. There is, I think, almost no material on Earth that actually absorbs light. There's maybe Vanta black, which comes close. I think that's the closest thing to actually, like that that reflects no light. But all other things, even if it's black, yes, it reflects very little light, but it still reflects some light.
Yes, it does.
Or else we wouldn't be able to see it, pretty much. That's what it comes down to. And global illumination. And global illumination, just from telling, on this slide, you can see, that's, I think, the most, you can make that as extensive as possible, as you want. Because it's pretty much, unending, never ending, pretty much. Because this is how light from all sources, how it reacts, how it bounces off things, and then reacts with other objects. And so it can go on pretty much forever. if you want. And so that's depends on how you do it, but that's why there's so many rays out there, because the light just goes everywhere in the end, and it all influences each other. So how the current implementation of Nvidia ray tracing and RTX works is it still uses a combination, as I told you before, like for example Battlefield 5 uses a combination of rasterization, so that's the way that games were made previously as well, and what all the previous GPUs were optimized for doing, for that one task pretty much, and that way of doing things. And then adding in some elements of ray tracing, like glass, some materials that will reflect. It can calculate how it moves through water, how it interacts with different things. So it will try to combine it. So the game will still function in rasterization, but it will add certain ray tracing elements. And they called that the holy grail of graphics, because then they thought we can combine the best of both worlds, basically. So the performance that rasterization has been able to achieve throughout the years, and the almost lifelike and real lifelike imagery of that ray tracing can deliver, which is a pretty sweet proposition, if you ask me. Yeah.
Well, it's the best of both worlds currently.
Yeah. And especially as far as the hardware will be able to support and permit. But here's then an overview of pretty much the process that pretty much every frame goes through in a ray tracing scenario. So you've got things like deferred shading, direct shadows, direct lighting, reflections, global illumination, ambient occlusion, transparency, translucency, and then in the end everything comes together, and then you get some post-processing to basically deliver a polished image and a polished result. But this is like a very simplified step-by-step thing of overview of what slides go through, what the frames go through. A typical rendering pipeline, if you will, especially when it's hybrid, because as you can see, these are a combination of some things are raster or rasterized, and some things can be ray traced, or a combination of both. And of course they do that because if you would ray trace everything, this would mean that you drop dramatically in performance, because it will take much more time to do that task and to render that. So they will use, they'll try to find a nice balance between a rasterized image or rasterized stuff that probably, somewhere that you don't really look, they will rasterize stuff. But the points where you focus in a game or what you're looking at, that could be, for example, ray traced.
And still, the rasterized technique is very effective. So why not combine it?
It's very effective.
Compute heavy also. So
no, but it is very. I think for the developers of the games and the artists that make all the settings and then do all the 3D artistry basically of the settings, it is very time consuming, because they have to do all the effects by hand, and this is
that's true.
Far from real time, so it could in the end make making games more efficient as well.
Yeah.
Here's some overview to give you some idea of, for example, examples of global illumination. I think this was from what was the platform called? Octane, I think. So it is a program that does and a platform that does a lot in ray tracing already for a long time. So on the left side, you see an example that basically uses no global illumination. It uses just direct lighting, which you can clearly see because the light is coming from above. I'll use my mouse to indicate it. Light is coming from above. This is the light source. And then on the other side, basically, of this object, it's just dark. There's no light bouncing off any of these other surfaces to light this part of the object, right? So it just becomes completely dark. And the shadow, therefore, is also, it's like, very narrow, and there's no difference in distance pretty much in terms of how sharp and how dark the shadow is, which in real life is not the case.
And it still looks a bit flat.
Yeah, and that's
as far as 3D can be flat, but
this looks not that realistic. I mean, it's fine. It'll do the job. You get the idea, but it's not realistic. So in the pursuit of trying to make it more realistic, they then, for example, here you have an ambient mode. An ambient mode pretty much then enables light bouncing off other surfaces, which creates this, this is, I think, too much lighting. It's not very clear that the light from this side, that it should be a bit darker here. I think the nuances here are lost.
You can't see any depth in the corners.
Yeah. So this also makes it maybe even more flat than no global illumination, because it's too over the top.
Right. Yeah.
So then the middle ground pretty much is then ambient occlusion a bit. So this is also used in a lot of games these days, where you see there's a lot more nuance. So there's there's a lot of shadow, and more towards the bottom where less of the light reaches it, it becomes darker. The shadow is also more realistic, where closer to the object it's darker, and then it gradually dissipates to the edges, basically. So this is already a big step. However, for example, the light hitting the blue wall on the left isn't influencing at all the light that hits the object.
Nope.
So that's the next step. So this is pretty much, the realistic stage of realism that we're at now, or we're trying to get at now, which is the diffuse light as well, which means that the rays of light hitting other objects will also interact with everything else in the room. So that means that this blue wall here will influence the color of the light hitting the ball, so reflecting off and hitting the ball, and even on the ground.
Yes, and even on the right side of the ball, it looks like there's a green wall, which you can't see.
No,
obviously,
but there probably is indeed. So because then, that's why there's a bit green here. So again, this is in the pursuit of making things as realistic as possible, which is really impressive, but requires a lot of computational. To do it in real time, at least, it requires a lot of compute power. Then there's a thing like denoising. I think a lot of people who have seen the ray tracing demos and stuff have seen this as well. I'll just quickly recap. So the top left is the not denoised image. So this is basically the raw input of the card. So every spec, basically, that you see filled in there, the lighter ones at least, are basically the rays that are being calculated. So this is a way, what they're doing is they're not calculating, or they're not shooting rays out of every single pixel, because that would make it so intense in terms of rendering that it's just not doable in the current hardware, pretty much. So what they will do is they will just calculate like half, or I don't know, maybe even 25% they can do, and then shoot out just a couple of rays. So the unfiltered image will look like the top left pretty much, and so some of the parts will be then calculated and ray traced. And then they will use an algorithm to fill in the rest, to fill in the blanks pretty much. So then that means that they don't have to ray trace the whole image, which would mean very low FPS. So they will let an algorithm, like, or in Nvidia's case, AI tensor cores, they will let them calculate the rest based on the information that they have on the left side image. I'll show you a real-time example of this later on in the game as well, by the way. So you can see it in real time, which I think is pretty cool. And then something that really amazes me every time I see it is caustics. Because this is pretty much, how light behaves when it hits certain objects and travels through them. So just imagine, I don't know if you've ever been like near water, near a swimming pool. If you've ever tried to pick something up, when you're looking at the water, for example, and you're trying to pick something up, and once your hand hits the water and goes through it, basically, your perspective changes, right? Because light behaves differently in fluids, in water, for example. Similarly, when, for example, you have on the bottom of a swimming pool, you can see waves of light traveling. That's a great example of caustics as well. And I think that that's one of the most difficult things to behaviors of light as well, to program into ray tracing, because it is realistic that it would do that. But how do you account for that? How do you program that? That's just...
Well, I think it's all about the material and object properties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which they can give values. So
yeah, but that means that, just think with me here, that means that if you want to do that every type of material that needs to interact with light that way has to have its own pre-programmed properties of how, or algorithm, if you will, of how it should interact and how light should interact with it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
goes a lot of
mind
work
blown. That's a hell of a lot of work, And if you have to do this by hand, you would be forgiven, by the way, to think that this is an actual picture, because it looks very realistic. This is a ray traced image, and it's a still image. It's not moving, so that makes it doable. But still, when I saw this, I thought, yeah, this is a picture of a glass, and it doesn't look very spectacular if you just think, yeah, it's just a picture of a light shining in a glass. But if you then realize, no, this is real. This is ray traced by a program. It makes it very impressive to me. Another nice example that we're going to see later on in the demo as well is volumetric light, or things you might know as God rays. So yeah, that's always something that adds a really nice touch. You usually get it when you have like a very dusty ass room.
Yeah.
But
or
it just adds so much.
Attic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, one of those places where when you get there, you just start sneezing or stuff. But yeah, it just adds a lot of to the atmosphere of the game. But you'll be seeing this later on as well, because this is a real-time example of the game we're going to show you later on.
This isn't a next-gen game.
No. This is a very much previous-gen game, because the game we'll be playing came out in 1997.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so this is a really old game. And here's what I was talking about before with Battlefield 5 and ray tracing. You know, when it first came out, that was on the left side. You can see, you know, when you would turn on ray tracing, it would have a dramatic impact on your FPS. It would be more than halved. You know, it would just it's unacceptable, especially given the fact that we have been very much spoiled these past generations by, you know, we want, especially in shooters, you want high FPS, right? You want close to 144 if possible, especially if you have a monitor which does 144 hertz. And then, you know, just, was it a few weeks, maybe 1.5 months or something later on, Nvidia was working with the guys over at Ubisoft, or was it, no, sorry, Origin.
Yeah,
Ubisoft. They're also working with Ubisoft, no doubt. But with Origin, you know, the makers of the Battlefield game, and they were able to pretty much find optimizations to almost double the performance, which, you know, only doing that only in a few weeks, that just tells you that there's so much still left to optimize, to discover, to see how can we implement this technology. Again, this was just the first wave of trying to implement it into a game. And just in a few short weeks, they already managed such a big leap. Yeah, it's just amazing. So, yeah. Let's see, what's next? So then, of course, I already mentioned it before, and the background we had before as well. I saw people asking about it. Was it the Talos principle? Nope, it was Cyberpunk. Because, you know, one of the big games we're waiting for is Cyberpunk, which is going to include ray tracing of all sorts. I don't know which technologies exactly they'll be using. I mean, you know, obviously you get reflections and refractions here already, and some global illumination. But I don't know if they're going to use all the ray tracing effects, or if they're going to have to limit it because of maybe performance hit. I don't know. We're going to have to see. But we have until, was it March 2020 or something that it comes out?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think they're using full ray tracing for this one, because it's a next-gen title.
Yeah.
It's heavy already.
Yeah, I don't expect it, but I do think they will try to up the game compared to the current ray tracing games. You know, I do think that they will try to do at least the next step of ray tracing and some more effects and some more visual candy, which is, I think, a great thing. And then, of course, we have Watch Dogs Legion coming out later on as well, which also is going to implement a lot of the ray tracing effects. So, yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what that does. In the meantime, though, we're going to jump into the game. While I'm doing that,
let me see.
We're going to read the chat as well a little bit. I might destroy my RTX card, overclocking the heck out of it, and get a Super on warranty, says Basix. I don't know if it works that way. But, I mean, good luck destroying your card, overclocking it. I think, to be honest, you're going to have to do some pretty special stuff, some janky stuff, if you're going to try and destroy it doing overclocking. There's a lot of safety features built in.
Road Knight is saying we are getting closer and closer to the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Keanu's already in there.
Yeah, Keanu is in there. Yeah.
You know, so that's a sign right there, right? Sometimes you have to live dangerously. I'll see Edward saying, It is always that way. Each year there's something more powerful. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, give it a few years and we'll have more powerful hardware. You can put it in main if you want. We will have more powerful hardware, probably. But on the software side also, I think there's a lot of optimizations that can still be done, which will improve performance and then give some headroom to apply more of the effects, you know? So it kind of works that way. And yeah, I mean, he also says, I'd say it's pretty good now. It used to be 30-40% more powerful cards at the same price. This is around 10-50%, so nothing to regret. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Nvidia tried to do two things at once with the 20 series, and they got a lot of flack for it. And I guess partly, you know, looking at it from a practical perspective, yeah, that was very warranted. But looking at it from a purely technological perspective, and the fact that they chose to push this new technology. You know, they didn't have to do it. Nobody was forcing them. So it was their decision. So you kind of have to respect the balls that they had to do, you know, because it's not without its risks, you know. It backfired a bit in the end. I think, and I hope a lot of people now also see the value. But you know, if you're willing to shell out the price and the money for those cards, because they were a hell of a lot more expensive than the generation before it, I mean, that's an individual decision. So that's all up to you. I think people are talking about destroying graphics cards here. Humidity will do it as well. Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't recommend it though. Just I also don't think you'll get warranty if you destroy a graphics card with humidity.
No.
Because there's I think there's indicators on there, so they can actually tell that it died because of getting wet or something like that. I think I Am Box is right. I think it's about time to pick a winner.
Yeah, should we pick a winner?
Yeah.
Okay.
You go for it. Just can you put the visual on the screen as well then? Just for the people.
Sure.
Then you do the magic and I'll... You can still participate, of course. So this is the first winner of the stream that Robin is about to announce. But you can still join on msi.com/2/insider. You'll find a button there right across me, probably somewhere, that says participate in the giveaway. If you cannot find that button, you can also click on the link that Robin will post. We are live streaming on a lot of multiple platforms, by the way, a lot of different platforms. So we're live streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and I believe Mixer, and 3 different Twitter or Periscope channels.
That's correct. Yeah.
And I think especially the Periscope/Twitter channels I don't think you see the link there. So if you don't see the link being posted there, feel free to also open up a Twitch, visit our Twitch channel or any of the other ones I just mentioned, or YouTube is also one that's easy to find. You'll also get a hell of a lot more better visual quality there, because the stream will be in full HD at 60 FPS on both Twitch and YouTube. And then you can, there you will find the link to the giveaway in the chat. So.
Okay, so I think we have a winner.
Yes.
And the winner is Jackson Wang.
Jackson Wang.
Yeah, congratulations, Jackson.
Is that a surname for Jensen Huang?
I don't know.
Has kind of the same ring to it. I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, either way, you win a $20 Steam voucher wallet code. So congratulations with that. We'll send it to you in the coming days. So you'll be able to spend it in the Steam summer sale that's going on. So yeah, on with the stream then. Let me just quickly boot up the game. I'm also running Afterburner, by the way, so with an on-screen display with some things showing, 3 things actually. GPU temperature. Again, remember we have a, maybe you can show the specs. Yeah, you can switch, and then you can show the specs as well if you want. We're running a Trident X with which we modified a little bit because we put a 2080 Ti in there. Originally, it had a 2080 in there, but we wanted to make sure that we have the absolute, top-end model so that we get the best performance and we can showcase it. So yeah, other than that, it's a really good desktop as well. But this game is, it's kind of like Crysis in some way,
Yeah.
Because
now it is.
Yeah, they made it that way. So you can see in the middle there is GPU temperature. There is a percentage being displayed there. That's the percentage of the GPU being actually used, which should jump up to pretty much close to 100% pretty soon. And how much FPS is being displayed. You can also see, by the way, there that it says Vulkan. So this game is using the Vulkan engine, or yeah, at least not DirectX 11 or 12. So this is using the Vulkan encoding. And yeah, let's just jump into the game. So you can see here, if you played this game before, Quake II, which was, of course, always from id Software. Now it's, of course, being revamped by a combination of Nvidia and Bethesda. You can get this game for free again. I'm just going to share with you guys again. You can get it for free on Steam. Just look for Quake II RTX. And at least the first 3 levels, it's a demo. Remember when we had demos? Yeah, first 3 levels are free, so you can then at least play around with all the effects that I'm about to show you as well. And that's, I think, really the point of Quake II RTX. We have the full game, so yeah, we can.
Already some questions. Why not RTX 2070 gaming series for supercards?
I don't really understand the question. Do you mean why do we not have it, or why are we not using it? A 2080 Ti, as expensive as a second-hand car. That's about true, correct. Mr. Masterdox. Yeah. This PSU is a bit on the limit. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Edward, if we're not pushing the limits, we're not doing our jobs right. So. But you'll see, even on a 450 watt, it's a good, exactly, it's a good quality GPU or PSU. So I think that's the difference. If you have like a very cheapy brand, 450 watts, yeah, that's really pushing it.
Gonna happen.
But this PC can handle it. So the model. Okay, so this is coming back to why we don't have a 2070 gaming series for the supercards. Just wait. Later this stream, we're going to talk about Super, and I'm actually going to then show you the lineup that we will have. So stick with the stream, just enjoy the gameplay a bit, and then after that, we're going to talk about Super, and you're going to see which models we will have for the Super. So the game, it also lets you do multiplayer if you have the full version, but it's all about the video options. So here you can already see, renderer, you can choose RTX, which is in Quake II RTX, it will automatically enable that. But you can also switch to the OpenGL, which again is the old renderer, and you'll get, I tried it before, I could try it again in a minute, you get like 1000 FPS. It's ridiculous. But we'll stick to RTX for now. We're going to do full HD. One, because the stream can only handle full HD, and secondly, because, yeah, I'm going to do the resolution scaling later on. I'm just going to put it on 100% now. But you'll see that even a 2080 Ti will struggle and drop in FPS when you put it in a higher resolution. FPS counter is on, but we already have one on the screen, so I'll just disable this one, and we'll just use the one of MSI Afterburner. But there's a lot of cool features here, which we'll go through later on when I'm in the game, actually. But you can see the denoiser, you can actually disable that. So that's pretty cool. You can see the raw image with the grainy thing. You can disable textures, which lets you see a bit more clearly, how the light and shadows move about on surfaces. Global illumination has multiple settings, so you can try, and you can also see the performance impact there. God rays, or volumetric lighting, of course, can be turned off and on. Bloom, caustics, and a lot of other stuff. And you can even do multi-GPU support. So if you have an SLI setup or something like that, you can use that. And some other really cool options that they put in here. I really honestly don't remember. Maybe the original game had these, but if it did, I don't remember. But the environment setup, so you can actually, this is a background or like the sky type, basically. This is kind of an upgraded one. You've got the original one, I'll show you in a bit, which is very pixely. And you've also got an earth type. So they make it bit more realistic. Struggles is kind of like a Martian. It has a bit more red in it. And you can fully then customize, how do you want it to look? What's the brightness like? Do you want it to be very dark? Do you want it to be very light? So you can fully customize how the game looks. And some really nice things like a player setup. You can even do a third-person view if you want in the game. Anyway, it's just really some really cool things they put in there. So let's jump into the game. I'll just do easy, by the way, because I have nightmares about failing games on stream. But as you can see already, if you've seen the game in its original form, this already looks a hell of a lot better. And especially this glass. I think this glass was one of the showpieces showed by Nvidia as well when they released this game. It both I mean, you can watch through it obviously, but you also see the reflections. You can even see my character moving around in front of it, and I'm being shot at right now, so I'm gonna have to deal with this guy. There we go. Die. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the big examples, and you can see in real time everything is being ray traced. Also on my gun, you can see some of the lights reflecting on it, on the material. And also, if I shoot these barrels, I mean, that was like a really good, nice effect. I love the explosions; they're so old school. But I mean, if you just quickly compare this, and I'll just put it into the old render mode. So OpenGL, and then it will restart the game for a second because it will need to open it again. And here you go. So this is basically in the OpenGL renderer, and you can see straight away it's like 1000 FPS, and the graphics card is barely doing anything, but it's just a huge difference. The game instantly looks way more, well, it looks a bit more ominous as well because there's less light. This is, by the way, the original skybox texture. So this is what I mean when I say it's a bit more pixely and dark.
Old school.
And foreboding, and I still like it though. I mean, for the time, this was an amazing game already. All right, let's go back to RTX.
So Edward and Joe, as you can see, the 450 watt PSU will handle.
We have a fire extinguisher ready because Joe is concerned if it will catch on fire. No, it won't. We tested it.
As you can see, VGA is stressing out, and
well, it's
PSU is
96, 97%.
Yeah.
But even then, the GPU in the Trident X, which is a relatively small form factor PC, remember, but it's just breaking 60 degrees, so it's actually not that hot. But we're getting, if you look at it, we're getting about 74 FPS. Remember, guys, this is a 2080 Ti, and this is at full HD. This is 1080p. Just let that sink in for a moment, because that's just mind-boggling. Anyway, there's some really cool things, like with a click of a button, you can cycle through times of day. So like this is like nighttime, I guess, or evening. Now it's nighttime. It's really dark. Now it's morning. But especially these times of day, it's really nice because you get the sun, and you get basically all the goodness of the rays coming in pretty much. But let me just quickly go to a spot that highlights this even better. And while I'm doing that, let me deal with these guys. Come on. These guys actually, this is some next level dodging that these guys are doing. They're actually quite fast, Come on. All right. So let's see. So here we have, this is fully ray traced, by the way. Because here you can see, for example, the volumetric light coming in, and actually this texture, for example, and above it is all being lit by the light that hits the floor here. So this color here comes from this patch being hit by the rays of the sun here. So that's just one example of how the global illumination, the light actually goes all over the place. And if I can show you a little bit the different sky effects as well. Let's see. I'll just stand. Oh, just try and stand up here, see if it'll let me. There we go. Because, let me see. No, it's here, environment setup. Because then, for example, when I choose the original map, you get this. Oh, and I'm picking a fight, apparently. There we go. You get this, which is very old school and pixely. Really nice. It's almost like 8-bit. I love it. And then you have the Earth type. So you can see this is more like, you know, the blue sky and like a rocky desert or something.
Or daylight.
Yeah, like normal blue, but blue light.
Bluish
you know?
light, yeah.
But to be honest, in a setting like Quake II, you know, I think it's more suiting to have like this foreboding red thing, like Martian type lighting. So we'll go back to Strogos. So here you go. It's more the foreboding, and also look at that, really nice. And again, you know, I can just change the time of day like this, like so. But here's one of the really cool things. Here you see,
this is it.
This is the God rays, guys. Look at that. This is gorgeous. So this is the volumetric light. This is the thing you get in really dusty rooms where you haven't cleaned for like ages. But it just adds such a nice touch to the game.
Yeah, also you're
and you can
more
see
immersion, I would say.
Yeah, and you can see my character actually, you know, it casts real-time shadows. And maybe I can switch to third person real quick. Let's see, here we go. Because as you can see, the closer, I don't know if you can see this quite clearly, but the closer the shadow gets to my feet, the more dark it is and the more sharp the shadow is. But as it moves away from my character, basically where I'm pointing my mouse, it dissipates. It becomes more blurry, and it also becomes less dark. So this is actually the way that light behaves in real life. So this is way more realistic. And this is what I mean, where I think it's Shadow of the Tomb Raider that also uses this kind of shadow mechanics, you know, this kind of shadow ray tracing. But a game like Battlefield, for example, doesn't. It uses different aspects. This game pretty much combines all these aspects in one game. And that's also why I think it's so computationally expensive, why even a 2080 Ti is struggling. Because they just went all out pretty much on this game with the ray tracing effects. And even if I have, I don't know if I can see, if I get like a guy lying somewhere in the sunlight, but if I for example shoot someone who's lying in the rays of light, you can see here his feet. I'm going to switch back to first person mode, by the way. Here we go. You can see here, for example, his leg and his foot is casting a shadow. But when I frag him, when I actually shoot him, it's gone, and it reacts to the elements that are actually in the game instead of, it's not like a pre-programmed thing where it just disappears, or you know, the shadow stays even though the thing that it's based on is gone. It's all done in real time, and that's, I think, the big difference with a lot of the games that are that don't use ray tracing at the moment. My hardware specs are actually there at the bottom.
Yes.
The good old days, says Master Dog. So I was 16 when this game came out. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I got some seriously nostalgic chills when I was playing this. It's just, and I love the fact that they made it, at least, you know, the demo version, they made it free. So all of this you can play. This is like the first level, the entry level, and you can play it for free. You can just go ahead and download it. Also, by the way, because now let's just let's play with the options a little bit. So,
but these are the original textures, right?
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I think they're updated a little bit. Yeah. I mean, they look like they've been they've gotten a little bit of an HD makeover. Right. But you can see also, for example, the different materials behave differently, because here this is, I think, a bit like rusty metal or something. And you can see the reflections. It's actually, even those small particles here are actually reflecting things that are happening around it. So that's how crazy the detail goes of this game. Also this, for example, so it's reflecting lights from above, for example, and from outside. But when we go and play around a bit, so I'm now going to turn off the denoiser. So here's what you get. Basically the raw input. So here's basically all the pixels you see moving, and this is actually not that noisy, I have to say. I've seen far worse, but this is pretty much, you know, everywhere that you see a pixel that it's not black, that's where rays are being calculated. So that's a hell of a lot of rays, as you can imagine. And I think in games like Battlefield, it's even worse if you would turn off the denoiser, because they really had to cut back on the number of rays that are being calculated in order to also help along performance. But that's why I think it's so amazing that you can go from this and then, you know, using an algorithm to fill in the rest to a fully filled image, which just you wouldn't say that there's that the basis for that is such a noisy image, you know. Because look, I don't know, because the feed on the stream can be a bit compressed.
Especially the shadows are very noisy.
Yeah.
The highlights
so
are
the edges of the shadow and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can see this quite well because it's a bit cropped on the stream. But it's very noisy indeed. And then when you turn on the denoiser, it fills in the rest. And yeah. But as you can see, by the way, if you look at the performance, so I get like 78 FPS right now. And let's see if I turn off the denoiser, what that does to the performance. So then I jump to 93. So it does have some performance impact, the denoiser.
Yeah, but it's not that bad.
No, it's it's like only, I don't know, like 15, 16 FPS.
This is all because the tensor cores?
Yeah, so the tensor cores do fill in the denoising part indeed, so they will handle that part. And again, guys, you know, this game is way more heavy in terms of ray tracing technology used and applied than other games. So here's one other cool feature, so you can turn off the textures. And here that makes it easier to spot, you know, how the light is affecting and the shadows are moving around, because normally the textures can also influence how things look. But also here, so if I then, for example, use my magic button to change the time of day, you can again see very clearly how the light responds everywhere. And also, for example, that even though the light from the sun is shining on the floor, it's actually radiating and bouncing off and lighting the rest of the room as well. So because this orangey color basically is also lighting the rest of the room and my gun now, for example. So there you can see that, you know, in varying degrees, it all influences each other in terms of the light and then the ray tracing. So that's, you know, it just shows you how much detail there goes into this. It's not only direct lighting, it's bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. Then global illumination. So I'm just going to turn this off. First thing you will notice is that stuff gets a hell of a lot darker. And this is because global illumination, again, is, you know, that light just doesn't hit a surface and then stops. Global illumination means that it hits a surface and then it keeps going. It can bounce around and then hit other obstacles and light them individually as well. And there are varying degrees of global illumination. So there's a low setting, a medium, and a high. And just to show you, so with global illumination off, I get 132, 133 FPS. So it's quite a nice performance boost, right? But if I then turn it to low already, I get just above 100 FPS. So, but there's already a lot more, ambient light basically, and bouncing around a little bit.
Joe Brown is saying plastic Quake.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, especially the gun thing looks a bit like shiny plastic.
Plastic fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. But if I then turn it to medium, the performance hit is actually not that big. I went from 103, so it's about 10 FPS difference, 11. But in terms of the light being bouncing around, it's already a lot bigger. So maybe even if I turn off the textures, it might be easier to see. So turn off global illumination. Now you see there's a lot less of the orange color going around, basically. If you're not directly in the light, there's some of it going around, but it's not quite as much. But then when I turn it on, there's a hell of a lot more. So it's more like a secondary light glow effect that, you know, it keeps bouncing. And then when I turn it on to high, I'm going to turn the textures back on, because now I'm looking more at the performance. Then it drops a bit more. So this is on high. And I think from some reviews I saw that they said, well, medium is pretty much the, you know, you won't notice much of a difference between medium and high. So medium is pretty much the sweet spot, because then you also get, you don't get too much of a performance impact. And then, of course, here's my personal favorite. So if you turn off the God rays, this is a hell of a lot less impressive, right?
Mr. Mastodox is saying, so the upcoming year, we will see ray tracing releases of games from the 90s. Duke Nukem,
well,
Unreal, Carmageddon.
You already
MDK,
thought of a nice question, right? Earlier.
Yeah.
So why don't you ask them?
So what old school game from the 90s or even early 2000s would
Whatever.
you see with full ray tracing?
Would you want to see get this treatment?
This
you
level?
know, the ray tracing treatment,
The
ray
makeover.
tracing.
Yeah.
So let's turn.
Please let us know, guys.
The God rays back on. Ah, look at this. Much better. This is way more impressive. Bloom. I've not seen Bloom do that much. It intensifies light a little bit, but and it gives a bit more area light as well. But other than that, yeah, I didn't see that much difference. And caustics, but for that I would really have to, you know, go and look for some water. So let's see. Well, there's some water down there, but it needs to be deep water, I think. Let's see if we can quickly find something. Ooh, big guy. Let's just let these things explode. By the way, another really nice thing that they did once I kill this guy, before I myself get killed, is they also made these consoles reflecting and refracting and stuff like that. So if you look at that, they also reflect everything in the room, like really detailed. It's really cool to see a game like this, which, like, you see the really old elements and the old shapes and stuff like that, and then combining it with like hyper new and modern ways of rendering. It just gives such a strange way of that the game looks.
I just came up with a awesome game for ray tracing. Star Wars, the pod racer game.
Oh yeah, I
Episode
remember that
1
one.
racer.
Ooh,
yeah,
that one was cool. Yeah, I remember that one. Oh, I'm gonna see if I can find some water for the caustics. Actually, let's just.
So what's the chat saying?
I'm just gonna cheat a little bit because I don't want to keep you guys waiting too long. So I'm just gonna do the no clip.
GTA Vice City.
Actually, I don't know. Okay, so this is a different level. There's no water in here. So let's just jump to the next one then. Where's the elevator? Whee! Oh. Well, as long as we're cheating anyway, let's just. Oh, is there some water here? There is some water here, but again, I don't know if it's deep enough. Let's just shoot these guys, and then we can look around at our leisure. Die! Okay. I was going to say, am I now being shot from the other side? I need some health. Okay, so there's water here, and let me see if I can turn on the caustics. And if you see the difference. Not really. Maybe if we get some direct light onto it. Here we go.
Yes, here we go.
So the caustics is pretty much, like I said, you know, at the bottom of a swimming pool, you can see the waves of light. Come on. I'm trying to show people caustics here, man. Have some decency. There we go. Oh, now he's getting involved. Anyway, so there are some caustics going on right there at the bottom. And you'll probably see this more clearly. It's like waves moving along. You'll probably see this more clearly when I disable them. Because now they're not there. It's much more of a normal green surface. And when I turn them back on, you can see a very slight, like wave-like pattern moving along the bottom of the water. Not quite as clear as I'd hoped. Hope you'll forgive me for that. But it's one example. So here you can see it's like the lighter pattern moving across the bottom. That's pretty much. It'll be way more impressive in deeper water.
So someone is saying Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, okay, yeah,
nice,
interesting.
James.
Yeah, pretty hefty visuals there, I think. Hexon or Heretic?
Hexen.
Oh my God, Heretic!
No.
I played that one as well a long time ago.
Yes, also, but Hexen.
Yeah.
Do you know the game?
Well, but was that Hexon or because he's saying Hexon? I know Hexen.
Hexen.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you mean that one, Synasteria. You probably abuse the machine if they were remade like Quake II. Yeah, I mean those games would be friggin' hard for any graphics card to handle. Let's see, and then there's some other things you can do in here. Again, I told you what I'm going to do now is I'll just restart the game because I'm just going to go back to the starting area, and there I want you guys to look at the FPS counter. So right now about 72, 73 FPS, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to up the resolution scale. So now it's 100%, so that means it's native 1080p. I'm now going to put it to 150, which I'm not 100% sure what it translates to. Somewhere close to 1440p, I guess. So it's going to render the game at around 1440p. So we go from 73, 74 FPS to,
fingers crossed,
just over 30.
Ouch.
But it's like it just already feels, the game just feels a lot more sluggish already, which is ridiculous because 30 FPS
this feels like old school console gaming.
Yeah,
this is not what we want.
No. I mean, granted, things look a bit more sharp. The edges and some of the textures even look a bit better, but just the raw performance hit. So 50% going from 1080p to around 1440p. It more than halves your performance. And again, guys, this is a 2080 Ti. So this is ridiculous. But it just shows you what the ray tracing can do and how over the top it is at the moment with hardware that's, just imagine. Right now, Nvidia have made a card that has to do both rasterization, so the classical game programming that games are being done in, and ray tracing at the same time. Just imagine what would happen if they make a card that is only built for ray tracing and maybe supports just a little bit of rasterization on the side. If the balance flips to the other side, that it's mostly ray tracing. I think then games like this that actually use a lot of ray tracing technology will benefit immensely, and that you could be looking at, I don't know, triple or quadruple the FPS, and you would get about already above 100, 120, 144 FPS. And then I think people would find it acceptable for a lot of games. So, and this is the kind of thing and the development that I think we're going to see in the coming years, depending, of course, on technological leaps. Maybe Nvidia, got shocked a little bit by the response that they got at first. So if I were Nvidia, I would be a bit reprehensive in making a gaming GPU nonetheless that will be only or mostly for ray tracing. Because
it is what Joe Brown says. Quake II is a new crisis.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah. Well, for ray tracing, I would say indeed. Yeah. So
the new benchmark.
What Crysis was for rasterization, Quake II RTX is for ray tracing. Yeah. Pretty much. I'd like to see a multiplayer PC version of GoldenEye with RTX, says Stinko Adam.
I would pay money for that.
GoldenEye, I mean, but wasn't that Nintendo?
Yes, Nintendo 64.
God. Yeah, I loved playing that back then. That was a hell of a game. Yeah. Hexen and Heretic were not true 3D, says Master Ducks. Yeah, that's true. I remember them, and they were more like Wolfenstein 3D in that regard, I think. So indeed, they were like fake 3D with a lot of sprites. Yeah, but they were, for that time, they were very very cool nonetheless. I really enjoyed those. All right, so I think it's time to maybe do another winner. What do you think?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Just switch back to me. Put the visual on. You do the drawing of the winner. I'll do the talking. So guys, we're gonna have a second winner drawing now. You can still join the giveaway. You can go to msi.com/2/insider or click the link in the chat that Robin will post later on, and you can win a $20 Steam wallet code. So if you don't see the link in the chat, you're probably watching us on Twitter or Periscope. So that means that you probably, to see the link, you would have to go to our YouTube or Twitch or Facebook channel, and then in the chat there, you'll be able to see the link. All right, then.
We have a winner, and the winner is Aaron. Aaron, congratulations.
Congratulations. You win a $20 Steam wallet code. So you'll be able to buy Quake II RTX, for example, or Quake II. Quake II RTX is actually free, but the original Quake II, I saw it. I think it's like $2 or $3 right now on Steam. And just for the full experience and to relive this game title again. Because if you have the full game, guys, you can download Quake II RTX, and then you can play the whole game in ray tracing. And that for me, I've been spending a lot of time with the game since this came out, and it was just so enjoyable. It was amazing to see it in literally in a new light.
You should give it a try. It's
even if your PC can't, if you don't have a ray tracing card, an RTX card, it's better with RTX, as you could tell, because obviously, even with a 2080 Ti, it's ridiculously heavy. And trust me, with a GTX 10 card or even older card, it's gonna break a sweat or burst into flames maybe. But you can always give it a try.
Okay, so I will post the link.
Yes. Let me see. Oh. And I will then go back to the next part of... Oh. All right, so we covered all this already, and now we're going to be talking about Super. Because I think that's also what a lot of you have been waiting for, right? I mean, the rumors were there for a while. And then yesterday, Nvidia came out and officially announced the RTX 2060 Super, RTX 2070 Super, and RTX 2080 Super. So I'm guessing if you're watching this channel, you have an interest in hardware, so you probably have seen and read already a couple of things. But I'd like to know in the chat, what do you guys think about these models and about Nvidia's move to release these? Do you see it as a positive thing? Do you like it? Or do you just think, well, it's more of a move to try and take AMD's thunder, which also they have their Navi cards coming out in a couple of days. But anyway you look at it, these cards offer better value for money. So, and that's always a good thing in my book. And we're going to go through the details in a bit as well. So, because we have, of course, the 2060 Super, 2070 Super, as mentioned, and the 2080 Super.
The holy grail.
Yeah, well, I mean, still, I think I'm actually not sure. There's no performance data for the 2080 yet, only for the 2060 and 2070. So for the 2080, we're going to have to wait a bit. I don't know exactly when it will arrive. But honestly, I don't know if it can beat the 2080 Ti. Because that's going to be difficult.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
It's not supposed to.
Maybe it's somewhere in between the 2080, 2080 Ti. We'll have to see. But so for the 2080 Super, it's still a bit of guessing. But we do have some specs. So, but before that, we're going to look at the MSI lineup. Because I already saw some people asking about it. Hey, why don't you have a 2070 Super gaming card? We will have them. And we will have a full lineup. So this is, of course, the key visual. This doesn't tell you exactly which GPU we will have, which model, but the next slide will. So are you ready for it? Because we have a full overview for you guys.
So, KUF Fallen? I've heard the 2070 and 2080 Supers are replacing the standard models.
I'll get to that, but basically, yes, that's also the information that we have got. So basically, the new 2070 and 2080 Super cards will be replacing the original 2070 and 2080 RTX cards, though the 2060 will still continue alongside with the 2060 Super. All right, so let's go. Quick, take a screenshot, then we can move on.
Yeah.
Now, so I'll just go over the lineup quickly. At the moment, the plan is to release a 2060 Super in the following models: Gaming X and Gaming, which are, of course, our twin Frozer models, gaming models. We will also have the 2060 Super Armor models, so OC and non-OC, which is, of course, the black and white version. Then Ventus, I think, is a very popular model as well. So we'll have that in both OC and non-OC. And we will have a 2060 Super. I don't know why I forgot the word Super there in the Aero ITX in the bottom one. But yeah, RTX 2060 Super Aero ITX. So there'll also be
ITX.
Yes, there will also be, of course, the ITX, the smaller form factor card. So that's perfect for people who want a small build. Then the 2070 lineup, at least for now, it will be quite small. You know, there's not too many cards there. So there's the Gaming X Trio or the Gaming Trio lineup. So that's the 3-fan gaming model, of course, and the Ventus model. So those are, of course, the nice black and silver models with 2 fans. For 2080, we have planned for you the Gaming Trio lineup, so also again with the 3 fans and Ventus and even an Aero. So Aero is the blower model. That's not in the other made in the other ones. Aero is mostly popular. We see, you know, with people who have a case where they don't have that much airflow, so it will eject the air straight out of the case from the card, so it doesn't blow the hot air from the GPU into the case. So that's the MSI lineup, and I think this is a world first because I didn't see this being published anywhere else. Actually, I don't think we even gave this information out yet. So you saw it here first.
World first. And someone is asking, any blower models?
Well, we just answered your question right there. So yeah, only on the 2080 Super though. So that's going to be the 2080 Super Aero. That's the blower model. Merrick wants to see the specs. Yeah, that's going to actually come up next. So we're going to look at that after this. Interesting pricing. Yeah, I can tell you the pricing. I actually didn't put them in these slides, but I can tell you because I can tell you the MSRP. Let's put it that way, because I don't know the pricing for these models specifically. But the Nvidia MSRP for example, the 2060 Super is $399. Which is compared to the original RTX 2060, which was $349. So it's about $50 more. But as you will see in a minute, it actually gives pretty good value for performance. The 2070 Super will be available for the same MSRP as the original 2070, which is $499. And for the 2080, they've announced, again, it will also be directly replacing the RTX 2080, the original one, which had an MSRP of $699. And the RTX 2080 Super is also set to have an MSRP of $699. So again, we'll be directly replacing it for the same price, but you get more performance. So that's pretty nice. KU Fallen, yep. So there will be an RTX 2070 Gaming Super, Super Gaming X Trio. Man, these names, you know, they shouldn't get much longer, should they? 2080 Super getting a Seahawk EK block model by chance? At the moment, not to our information, no. Flinty cloth. So if you're waiting for that, there might be some EK blocks available for these cards, but separately. I don't know at the moment. There's no plan for having Seahawk models for these cards now. Slightly better value for sure, but nothing exceptional. Well, any move in the right direction is a move in the right direction. And sure, I mean, everybody would have loved to see like half price and twice the performance. But I don't know if that's realistic. So, and again, it's all down to what you're willing to spend on a graphics card, and if you think these prices are realistic or not. I personally still also think it's quite expensive, but again, for the technology behind it, it is very impressive. And with the games coming up like Cyberpunk, like Watch Dogs Legion, these will have some amazing ray tracing implementations. And with an RTX card, you'll be able to enjoy them a lot better than with a 10 series card. Why did you guys... So Basics is saying, why did you guys hop over the sore point and not mention it? What sore point do you mean? Because I honestly, I always try to not avoid anything unless it's specifically, under NDA or something. You were not allowed to talk to it about
can't
it.
mention.
Yeah, because sometimes those are the things that we have to skip. Unfortunately, we can't talk about it. But other than that, we always try to talk about anything and just our opinions in general as well. But yeah, we can go into the specs. So here I've put them in a line for you guys. So the green ones are the new ones, are the super ones, obviously. And here you can clearly see also what super is and how they made the super variations faster than the original models. So for the 2060 Super, for example, it's built on the same TU106 GPU. However, it has more CUDA cores. So it's pretty safe to say it's probably something like an RTX 2070, which also uses the TU106 GPU. With some cores disabled. Maybe they were able to use more of the yield rate of the GPUs this way from Nvidia's side, which also, again, would enable them to maybe drop the price a little bit. So basically you get almost a 2070 for the price of a 2060 pretty much. So, that's a pretty okay deal. Also, the RT cores there, you can see, is a bit higher than the original 2060. So 64 or over 48. Core clocks have been upped a bit as well, even compared to the original 2070. It will have, the 2060 Super will have more VRAM, so 8 gigs instead of 6. But also, it will have a bigger memory bus. So that's not mentioned here, but that means that it's actually a pretty big deal that that memory can also be used. The performance, therefore, as you can see, is much closer in terms of teraflops. That's pure, compute performance. Is much closer to the 2070 than it is to the original 2060. The TDP is then also upped a bit, so to the level of the original 2070, which is not surprising. So the 2070 Super does not support NVLink, which is the SLI basically. And then moving on to the 2070 Super, you can see there compared to the original 2070, there's quite a big difference, especially because it uses a different GPU. So the 2070 Super uses the TU104 compared to the TU106 that the original 2070 used. This also gives it more cores from the outset, though not quite as much as the 2080, which also uses the TU104. The clock speeds are again a bit higher, also higher than the 2080, so that's pretty nice. VRAM is the same. The teraflops performance also gets a big jump compared to the 2070, so also closer to much closer to the 2080 than to the 2070. And also the TDP, so that's the wattage it can use, or actually the heat that it outputs, is up a bit from 175 to 215 watts. What's new is that on the one hand, it's very surprising. The 2070 Super will support NVLink, or does support NVLink. So the original 2070 actually didn't support NVLink or SLI. But because the 2070 Super is pretty much based on the chip and the architecture of the 2080, it will support NVLink.
It's a nice upgrade. Yeah.
It is, yeah. If you're planning on using multiple GPUs, especially more also for rendering, maybe, this is actually a pretty nice, boost.
So let's see the chat.
Before we move on to the 2080 Super.
Yeah, so Basex basically say same price for new and old card, early adopters.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the case that's also why I made the case with 3D, for example. Just remember that when 3D came about, there were specific 3D FX cards and stuff like that, or physics cards that you would have to buy, and they were in the beginning madly expensive. So this is a thing that you cannot avoid. You always have early adopters fee, or however you want to call it. When there's something new that comes about, in the beginning, it will always be more expensive because the whole process will have to be optimized. So the later on, the more you wait until the process is optimized and it's more adopted, the fees will go down and the price will go down. So this is a normal way of doing business, and it's always been this way. There is no way to go around that. The only question is, nobody's forcing you to buy a 2080 or an RTX card. So it's ultimately up to you. The purely rasterization performance difference between a 10 series card and a 20 series card of comparing series is actually less big than the generation before that. So if you have a 10 series card and you're not convinced that you want to pay what you so rightly say is the early adopter fee, or the price premium of being an early adopter, you're perfectly welcome to just buy or keep using your 10 series card, which is fine if you don't want to do the ray tracing. So yeah, I get the dilemma, and this is again, everybody was talking about this, and there are multiple points of view. Ultimately, it's up to you if you think it's worth it or not. But what we can already see here is that this is a move in the direction that it's already becoming a little bit more affordable. So they're offering better performance for pretty much the same price. So, yes, it's not a huge difference. It's not like half price, double the performance, but it's a move in the right direction. So it's already started. And I'm just this is also a normal thing, especially when there's competition. So that's always good. But this will only continue to go in this direction. So I think that's something you can take away from this. Maybe you're still not convinced by the super cards, and that's fine. That's all up to you. But maybe in a year or two or whatever, when there's a next generation of cards, it will offer, I don't know, 2x, 3x the amount of ray tracing performance for the same price, maybe a bit cheaper. I don't know. Maybe they'll find ways to make the production cheaper. So it's all down to how they'll be able to do this. But yes, it's a sore point, but it's nothing special. Let's put it that way. So I hope that answers your question. And again, we're not trying to dodge questions like that, but we do have maybe a different perspective. I also look at it from a gamer perspective, because I still am a gamer. I also still have a gaming rig at home, and I can't spend fortunes on it. I do have the good fortune to be able to play with for example, the 2080 Ti's of the world and the Lightnings at work. So that's a nice bonus, right?
Yeah.
We get to play around with those. So, but it does, give us a perspective, and also, we're in the industry for a long time. So we know what's normal business practice and what is not. And, for these things, it's something you can't really get around it. Merrick is asking, does that mean the existing RTX 2070 and 2080 will be totally removed from the market and replaced by the supercards? Yes. I mean, this will take a while, obviously. There are still a lot of 2070, 2080 cards in stock and in transit even. I'm not sure. I think they might have stopped producing them now, but then you will still have like months of inventory left, probably. So you'll be able to if you still want a 2070 and 2080 card, you can still buy those probably for a couple of months to come. But after that, they're going to be phased out, and in the end, replaced by the super cards. Yes. Oh well,
great
answer. Thanks, Basic. Glad you.
Yeah. So if you have other questions, please fire them at Peter, because he's the go-to guy.
Yeah, don't fire them at Robin.
No, I'm not Mr.
He will just answer, I am Groot.
Yeah, I am Groot. Simple as that.
All right. All right, so then we still have to look at the 2080 Super. So again, this card, we don't have any performance data for the RTX 2080 Super, but we do have these specifications. So this already tells us a little bit. So the 2080 Super uses the same TU104 GPU that the original 2080 was built on. However, it's a bigger GPU, a bigger die basically. Has more CUDA cores, so more performance. Same amount of ray tracing cores. A bit of higher core and boost clocks, so that's always nice. Again, that gives you a bit more performance. Same amount of memory. Same type of memory as well, although I did read somewhere that it is at a little bit of a higher frequency, so it's operating at a bit of a higher frequency. In my experience, the memory, the VRAM, can be overclocked quite easily anyway, so it's quite easy to get more performance out of the RAM of your card. But that already puts it, a nice margin ahead of the original 2080 in terms of performance for the same price. Remember, because they communicated the same MSRP for the 2080 and the 2080 Super, so there should be no price difference pretty much. But you do get more performance. Naturally, the TDP, because it's a bigger GPU and it will be higher clocked a little bit, so it will use a bit more power, so 250 watts. So again, that's also why on the 2080 Super cards, you will find a bit more beefy cooling solutions like the Trifrozer on the Gaming X Trio. And of course, also the 2080 Super will support NVLink. Okay, so we can move on. So we borrowed some of the results from our friends over at TechSpot, or Hardware Unboxed, if you know their YouTube channel. It's the same people. Yeah, they did a great job on basically all the media. They did a great job, but we found these specifically interesting because at 1440p, which is pretty much the I think the resolution you aim for a 2060, for example, they did a comparison between the 2060 Super and the 2060, the original version. On average, the Super version is about 9% faster at this specific resolution and in these specific games. So as you can see, per game, it differs a lot. So for example, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, DirectX 12 title, it's actually 13% faster. Whereas, for example, at the bottom end, you can see Forza Horizon 4, it's only 5% faster. So and this is always the case. It depends on the game. So individual games will give different results and different performance differences. But on average, it's about 9% faster than the original 2060.
It also depends which game favors which architecture, right?
Yes, yeah.
Some
so that's
favor
why
Nvidia, some favor AMD.
Well, it's not just that, but it's also some use DirectX 12, some use DirectX 11, and even games that use within games that use DirectX 12, not all of them use it the same way. So indeed, some of them may
more optimized.
Yes, yeah, in a specific way or in a specific coding language, so that it can be beneficial to either the Nvidia pipeline or the AMD pipeline, basically. So because they all use different ways of rendering and pushing out the graphics. Then comparing the RTX 2060 Super versus the original RTX 2070, we see that it's only 4% slower at 1440p. So that's actually pretty nice. So again, with the 2060 Super is pretty much just a 2070, and especially if you overclock, and this will be possible, the 2060 Super, you'll be definitely able to reach 2070 levels of performance. So that's really nice right there. And again, per game, it really depends. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for example, according to TechSpot's review, there's no real measurable difference. But in Fortnite, for example, if you're a big Fortnite player, there the 2060 Super is 7% slower than the original 2070. So something to consider. Then looking at the 2070 Super versus its namesake, the original 2070. It's on average 12% faster, and that's pretty nice.
Huge difference.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. And again, that's on average. So World War Z is the biggest difference here. It's 18% faster there. The Division 2, also a really nice game, about 14%. So there are a lot of titles where it's about 12 to 14% faster. And then there are some titles, Far Cry New Dawn, Fortnite, where it's only 8% faster. Still pretty nice, but a bit less of a difference. Then we're going to compare the 2070 Super versus the RTX 2080. And there we can see that compared to the original 2080, it's only 7% slower. Again, this...
Not that bad.
No, it really depends on the title. And I think, a 7% difference is something you can very nearly compensate with overclocking. I think, unless you're playing Forza Horizon or Fortnite, any of the titles at the bottom, where it's like 13 or 11% slower, I don't think you're going to make up that difference maybe with overclocking, but anything up to like 5-6% should definitely be able to get just by overclocking your card. I mean, Mr. Masterdox, you say conclusion, don't buy the regular 2070. It might seem that way, but it just depends on what the 2070 will cost, because
they're gonna as well.
Yeah, they're gonna phase it out. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a sales guy. I don't have the pricing information, but I can imagine that prices of the original 2070 and 2080 eventually in the coming months might drop, because it's going to be replaced by the new model. So shops might be trying to
get rid of stock.
Move their stock, because they want to clear the inventory. So if you get a good deal, and it's a choice between, for example, an RTX 2060 Super, which is more expensive than a normal RTX 2070, then the RTX 2070 is actually a pretty good choice. So it all depends on the situation. But if you're looking at it from a lineup perspective, then the 2070 doesn't really make that much sense anymore, which again also probably is one of the reasons why Nvidia is choosing to discontinue it. So it will be replaced by the 2070 Super. The 2080 will be replaced by the 2080 Super. So yeah. Then we also have this overview. I think they also did do a really nice job with this. Here you can see it's basically per frame on average, how much does it cost? How in reference to the cost of the card versus the frames it produces on average. So there you can see that the 2070 Super, for example, has already a lot better value per frame than the original 2070. The 2060 Super, however, is still a little bit more expensive, because it's about $50 more. But the performance is very close to the original 2070. So it's a bit of a trade-off there.
As you can see, the regular 2060 is still good value.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also, I think, why it makes sense that the original 2060 can continue and won't be taken out of the lineup, because it does still make sense to keep it there. Yeah. The 2080 Super obviously is not included here yet, because they don't have the data for that one yet. We'll have to wait. I don't know how long. And then once it's there, they'll also put it in there. But I'm pretty sure, it will be a lot better value than the original 2080 as well. So again, guys, it may not be a huge difference, but it's definitely a step in the right direction in terms of, cost for or value for what you get. Because, a lot of people said that the RTX 20 series cards were overpriced or way too big, way too expensive. And looking at it from last gen perspective, it was a big increase. But you know, there's a lot that goes into these cards, so the cost for Nvidia has been quite a bit higher as well. But they're now slowly moving into the direction that they're going to try and offer that performance at a lower price. So that's always a good thing, right? Let's see if you guys have any other questions. See a lot of discussion and a lot of conclusions of people. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that Baltic seal. Yeah. Good for customers. Now you can have more for less. He bought an MSI RTX 2080 Gaming X over 6 months ago. So you are one of the very early adopters, basically. Yeah. And I'm not sorry. And I think that's the best way to look at it. You know, if you make a decision and you pull the trigger and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this card for a specific price, then it makes no sense to you know, there's always going to be a year after that or something, there's always going to be something new, better, faster, and you know, it makes no sense to then go, oh man, I paid too much for that, because for that time you decided that price was worth it, and from that point on, the best thing you can do is just enjoy the crap out of your product, because once you get it, just enjoy it. You know, that's the best thing you can do. That's the best way to get value out of anything, to be honest. Oh yeah, he's saying that as well. So if you'll wait for better all the time, you won't buy any card at all. That's the thing. There's always something newer, better coming in, you know, on the horizon. It's just a matter of waiting and how long you want to wait. Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much it for today. So I hope you enjoyed the part about ray tracing. And the demo as well. Remember, you can get Quake II RTX for free, at least the demo version, and you can play around with it. See if your graphics card melts. Always a fun idea. And of course, the information about Super. So I hope you at least have some indication now of what it is, what you can expect, and also, of course, the MSI lineup that's coming your way soon. I think we might have one more winner.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Do it?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Let's see who's the lucky winner.
And the lucky winner,
JB.
JB,
congratulations. So we're gonna send that $20 Steam code to you very, very soon. And of course, thank you for participating. Thank you for watching. Yeah, we hope you found it interesting. And yeah,
I surely did.
Yeah, let's see what we're gonna do next week.
Okay, so next week
we're gonna be looking at AMD stuff. So X570, Ryzen 3000. Mike's going to be back here telling you all the details about it, and we're actually going to have somebody from AMD here in the studio, if I'm not mistaken. And it might be someone that you are familiar with, but I'm not going to spoil it. So
mystery guest.
Yeah, mystery guest. But it's somebody that I'm pretty sure that, especially the regular viewers, you will know this person. So, but if you want to find out, you're going to have to join next week. Same place, same time. Every day, every week on a Wednesday. And yeah, we'll hope to see you guys next week. Thanks for watching, and join next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.